Okay, we're here. Thank you all. Thank you all for showing up. I want to introduce Lillian in the event that you don't already know her. Lillian and I actually got really close a long time ago because I had a dog that was paralyzed and she was on a little cart. And Lillian helped us for a long time. She put her in the pool and just was a huge help to me. Lillian has always been a monstrous advocate for the dog. And she is always looking out for what is best for the dog. That's how I got started actually with LifeVantage. Lillian said, put your dog on Pet Tandem and dog on it. She showed me it worked and all I did was Lillian told me and hey, I believe it. So she has a 4-year degree in biology. She really gets this stuff really well. And she will explain tonight so that we all will also understand it. And she's been, oh my goodness, training dogs, Lillian, 30 years, maybe not that long. She's younger than that. So she really understands the dog and she is always looking out for what's best for them. So I would advise if you see something you like, take a screenshot and save it with your notes and get ready to take notes because she explains things. So we want to remember them and apply them to our own dogs. So Lillian, oh, you guys also, if you come up with a question or something, hold it, write it down, jot it down. And at the end, we can do questions. Thank you very much for coming and giving us your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Carolee. Thank you so much. And yes, I'm a dog trainer and I want to talk a little bit about how I'm transitioning into being a dog biohacker is what I like to be called now. And what happened was I was having issues with my own dogs. I've had golden retrievers and Labrador retrievers. I competed in conformation and obedience. We lived in Venezuela. I was actually the person who brought agility into Venezuela. And I was having the same, hot spots or ear infections and on and on. And we'd go to the vet and the dogs would be treated and they'll be fine for a few weeks or months and then boom, back again with the same issue. And that got me thinking, this is of course like 30 some years ago, 35 years ago. And I was like, well, this is madness. Like, why are we doing the same thing over and over and getting exactly the same result? So I started thinking about, well, why can't we get to the root cause? Like, what is causing these issues? And that kind of threw me into this world of holistic. Of course, at that time, I started with raw feeding when raw feeding wasn't a thing. I found a homeopathic bed. I found an acupuncture bed that would do acupuncture. Then I found another one that would do some oils and Bach flowers. So little by little, I just started having great results without having to use harsh pharmaceuticals. And that really called to me. And then I started applying, then I had kids and then I started having the same issues with my kids, like going to the doctor every 15 days for the same thing. And I'm like, this makes no sense. So that really drew me in. And then lately I've been really interested in the prevention. So my thought is, why do we want to wait until, these issues come and raise their ugly head? Is if there is something that we can do to prevent. So that's the camp that I'm in now. And I'll talk a little bit later, but one of the things that I've read lately, there's a study from University of Davis in California, where, how we all said like 1 year is equivalent of 7 years in a dog. Well, it turns out that dogs age exponentially the first few years. So that got me even more into like this frenzy, like, oh my God, we need to start these interventions early. So the information that you're going to see now, some of you may have watched what we call the ABC report, which is an interview with the doctor that he's a scientist, he's a researcher, very well known, and lots of like prizes, of course, in the scientific world that we hear about the Oscars and the Grammys, but we don't hear about that stuff, but they have the equivalent in the science world. And he's been awarded the Elliott Crescent Medal, which is awarded for people that make discoveries that change the course of humanity. So Henry Ford, Pierre Marie Curie, he's at that level. And it was a good friend who was a holistic equine vet who called me and said, you need to watch this because I think you may be interested for the dogs. And I was floored with, like Carolee said, I have a 4-year degree in biology. I understood most of what was said, not absolutely everything. But I was really intrigued, and I was like, oh my God, like if this is true, this is just amazing. And I started looking at the science and getting more and more involved. And I decided to become a distributor with the company because I had like fantastic results with one of my dogs. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share. So sorry, back to that ABC report. If you have not watched that, please, please, please get with the person who invited you to this and ask them to send you that ABC report, because after the information that I'm going to explain today, when you watch that, it's going to give you even more clarity. And if you have questions, also get back to them or DM me. We're here to help. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, and this is what I'm excited about. I found this new way to do this. So okay, here we go, present. I rehearsed it, so I hope it works. So bear with my slow internet. Here we go. Yay, it looks like it's working. Okay, so I'm going to put this over here, down here, so we can all see it. So Carolee, can you see my screen? Is it showing well?
Yes, it's very nice.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to be talking tonight about canine nutrigenomics. And nutrigenomics is a combination of two words, nutrition and genes. And what it means is how now it's a new science that is uncovering that nutrition can change your gene expression. What does that mean? You've probably heard like, oh, cancer runs in my family, or diabetes runs in my family, or heart disease runs in my family. What they're discovering now is that even though you may have the gene for a certain disease, unless that gene is expressed, you will not necessarily have to suffer that same disease. To me, this is just super, super exciting. And one of the things that has been lately my passion is that I'm really, really upset at the rate of cancer in dogs. So the rate of cancer in dogs is now 1 in 1.65 dogs will be diagnosed with cancer, and 50% of dogs over 10 years of age will actually die of cancer. So the lifespan of a dog should be between 15 and 20 years, even more, 22, 23 years for the smaller breeds, because the smaller breeds can live longer than the large breeds. And right now, you probably don't have to think very hard to know a lot of friends, people in Facebook posting that they're losing their dogs at, they're being diagnosed with cancer at 8 years of age, at 9 years of age, 10, and they're dying, they're 10, 12. I mean, we feel like absolutely miraculously lucky if we can get them to live to be 15. So one of the first vets that I followed, that I read about, because like I said, when I started 20, 30 years ago, there was no internet. So you actually had to read books. And Dr. Goldstein, it was one of his books, The Nature of Animal Healing. I love it. It's still a great book, although it's old. But one of the things he says, and they interviewed them. This is another excellent, excellent documentary. It's called The Truth About Pet Cancer. And it's a 7-part docuseries where they interview a whole host of integrative vets. So vets that do traditional and holistic, and also holistic vets. And then there's also a book called Canine Nutrigenomics by Dr. Jean Dodds. And she is the one who's been pioneering and pushing for our dogs not to be vaccinated yearly, but to do the titer testing, and that they don't need, they can be vaccinated every 3 years, every 5 years, that the titers are good for longer than the yearly. So in this book, or in this documentary, The Truth About Cancer, when they interviewed Dr. Martin Goldstein, this is a quote from me. He says, when I graduated from Cornell in 1973, approximately 1 out of 10 dogs had cancer. And it was always a disease of the old. So if we saw a dog that had a lump and the dog was young, we eliminated cancer as a possibility. We do see commonly dogs under 18 months old of age with terminal cancer. And then Rodney Habib, who is one of the producers of this documentary, he said, if you look back 50 years ago, some will say the cancer rate might have been 1 in 100 dogs. And today, according to PhDs, the dog has the highest rate of cancer of any mammal on the planet. Literally from last year, them saying 1 in 2 to this year, 1 in 1.65 dogs. will succumb to cancer. So this to me is absolutely horrifying. And like I said, that I like to get to the root cause, like what is causing this, right? Because we all hear like, oh, the cure for cancer, the cure for cancer. Why don't we look to what's causing all these cancers? And this is my personal opinion, but it's really backed up by all the vets that were interviewed in that documentary. So if we start here on the right, we see, there's a lot of vaccinations. If you read Dr. Jean Dodd, she explains why it's not necessary that we can extend the vaccination, some of them to 3 years, some of them to 5 years, some of them even to every 7 years. A lot of use of pharmaceuticals, a lot of use of antibiotics. Antibiotic means anti-life. When you take antibiotics, or your pet is with antibiotics for a long time, the bacteria in the gut get killed. And you probably have heard that 80% of your immune system lies in your gut. And it takes years for that flora, that intestinal flora, to come back. And we have to help it with the use of probiotics and prebiotics and postbiotics. And we need to work really hard to replace that intestinal flora, because that is the health. They are now even linking, I saw it was super interesting, and there's a seminar coming up that I want to attend. Just like with people, they are linking problems with the microbiome with emotional issues like depression and anxiety. And we know in dogs that dogs have anxiety, dogs have aggressive issues. So some of these behavioral issues of dogs that have panic, they can't be left alone, separation anxiety, all of that can be related to the microbiome. So for people that live in cities that are very polluted, that's the same air, they're breathing the same air that we are. Then all these products that we use to fight the fleas and the ticks, the collars, the spot-ons, if you have to walk your dog where the lawns have been sprayed with pesticides or herbicides, glyphosate is, oh my God, I could talk about glyphosate for hours. One of the issues that, so let me keep going on with this. So most of our dogs live now inside the house. They're outside, not as much as, let's say, maybe 10, 20 years ago, where we ourselves lived a lot more outdoors, and now we're always inside. So now they say that actually the environment in our house is 70 times more toxic than outdoors. And also the frequency from the Wi-Fi is affecting them all the time because they're inside all the time. So the flame retardants, the stuff that they put so that you don't have stains on your furniture and on your carpet. If you're using these plugins, please stop. This is super toxic, and they're breathing it all the time. Air fresheners, the products that we use to clean our floors, to clean your rugs, even to wash their bedding. What is their bedding made of? And of course the water, and I'll talk a little bit about food and the problem with the GMOs. But what you need to consider is that all of these, like the air fresheners, all of these toxic chemicals are heavier than air. So they tend to lay low on the ground, which is where most of the dogs are, right? They're laying on their beds, they're laying on the floor, they're laying on the couch. They're a lot lower than they are. The other issue that we have with the dogs is they don't take showers every day to wash off some of that stuff. They don't wear any protective clothing. They lick their paws. They don't wear shoes. So they are exposed. Anything that comes in contact with our skin and the pads of their feet are very permeable. So anything they touch, they lick it, that's going to get into their system within seconds, minutes at the most. So they are just being exposed to a massive, massive amount of toxicity, and their little bodies, also they're a lot smaller than we are, right? So their bodies are just exposed to a massive amount of toxins, and they can handle it. A big, big issue for me is food. Like I said, I've been feeding raw for over 25 years. And, I don't want to judge anybody doing kibble, but I do urge you to look and do a little bit of research, because in that documentary, all of the vets, every single one of them said that just adding between 10 and 20% of fresh, real food to your dog's bowl will increase the probability by hundreds of times that they won't get some of these horrible diseases. Okay, this is the equivalent like to you eating cereal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week, 365 days a year for all of your life. Okay, one of the issues is that the kibble, there has to be some sort of grain. They make it, it has to be corn, wheat, soy, oats, something, some grain, because that's how they are able to form that little, you know, ball of food. And all those are heavily sprayed because they buy the cheapest grains. So those are heavily sprayed with pesticides. So this glyphosate that I mentioned here is the main ingredient in Roundup. And Roundup is what they use to spray all these genetically modified crops. So, and if any type of protein, so if it has beef, turkey, chicken, whatever kind of protein has, these animals have also been fed GMO crops. So it's piling up on top of, so it's in the food, but it's also in the animals that have been fed the GMO. So it's all of this is concentrating, and just, it's just horrible. The poor dogs can't cope. So I want to talk a little bit about what all those toxins are causing. Those toxins are causing something called oxidative stress. And oxidative stress, you might, this is the term that you will hear a lot in that the interview with Dr. McCord, that ABC report. Oxidative stress is what happens. We're very familiar with this, right? We cut an apple or an avocado, we leave it out on the counter, and after a while, it's going to be brown. That brown, we know it's oxidation, right? It's oxidation because it comes in contact with the oxygen. We naturally, for example, if you're going to put something in your freezer and you're going to put it in a little plastic bag, we naturally tend to take all the air out, right? Because we know it's going to last a little longer, because we know that things that come in contact with oxygen will oxidize. Like if you leave a metal out, it will rust. So oxidative stress that is caused by free radicals, you might have heard that term, free radicals, is what causes inflammation. So remember that I talked about, let's get to the root cause. So the root cause of inflammation and disease is oxidative stress. So they are all linked together. So oxidative stress, that contact with oxygen, will lead to inflammation, and inflammation will inevitably lead to disease. There's actually over 200 diseases, including cancer. And this is also for humans, it's not just for dogs. So this is a normal cell. This is what happens when it starts being attacked by the free radicals. And eventually that cell will, will just not necessarily die, but a lot of the components of that cell will start being attacked, and including the DNA. So that's going to cause mutations. So what happens is, when the cell reproduces, it's going to make faulty copies of this cell. So if I could give you a silly example, is like if you have, let's say, I don't know, someone gives you a check and you leave it in your pocket, and then you forget to take it out, you wash it, and now it's gone through the washer, the dryer, and now you look at that check and you go like, oh wow, I need to, you know, stretch it out and kind of see, oh, I can still read it, the ink run a little bit. And then if you made a copy of that check and another copy and another copy, so that is what's happening inside the cells. Now, we cannot escape oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is caused by breathing, so we can't stop breathing, and it's also caused by the food. Okay, by the food we eat. And that's how all mammals live. That's what we need to survive. We need to breathe oxygen, and we need to eat food. And in that process, it's like putting gas in your car for it to run. Well, there's a toxic exhaust. So inside the cells, we need food for those cells to make energy. And in that process, we make free radicals. So oxidative stress, as you can see here, this is called an oxidative stress wheel. And it affects every single organ in the body. And then with it comes the disease, right? So when it affects the joints, you get arthritis. When it affects your lungs, you get asthma. When it affects your brain, you can have stroke or Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. Several different organs. Here's cancer. When you have problems with your eyes, you have cataracts, and you have retinal damage. It can affect your kidneys. It can also affect the skin. And one of the things, have you noticed that there's lots of dogs with skin issues? In fact, I was looking up, I Googled like, what are the main 3 reasons that dogs go to the vet? And the number 1 was skin issues. The number 2 was ear infections. And the number 3 was digestive issues. And so there's a link, right? Because all those pharmaceuticals are, and those toxins are also killing the good bacteria in the gut. So there goes the relationship with the gut issues, with the digestive system. This is estimated how many free radicals a dog makes in a day. 300, this is 300, I think septillion. It's just an unpronounceable amount. So what we have been told so far, the science so far is telling us that, oh, you need to eat a diet rich in antioxidants, right? That's why they say 7 to 9 servings of healthy, colorful fruits and veggies. Now, the direct antioxidant route is for one direct antioxidant molecule that comes from one of these colorful fruits and veggies, blueberries or kale or spinach, the body will be able to neutralize 1 free radical. So it's 1 to 1 and done. So you do the math. If we need to neutralize this many free radicals that we make in a day, just by breathing, eating, and stepping into the sunlight, because the sunlight is also a source of free radicals in our body, how much of this would we need to eat or feed our dogs, who, by the way, are eating this, where there's nothing colorful in there, right? I don't see any green or red or yellow. So can you see how the math just absolutely does not work out? So this is where this new science, so exciting, biohacking. And we tend to think of hacking as something bad because, oh, they hacked my credit card or my bank account. But hacking means taking control of a system. So we're taking control of a biological system using nutrition to change gene expression. And this is how nutrients now affect your DNA. So this is a protein. It has a super long name. We're going to call it NRF2 or NRF2 for short. And this protein, think of this protein like a master switch. So you know how in your house you have the switchboard, and one switch controls the lights in the kitchen and another one might control the lights in the bathroom. Oops, hold on. Can you mute yourself as you just came in, please? So this is a master switch. It's the switch that when you turn it on, it turns all the lights in the house, right? The whole house goes dark. So NRF2 is a master switch in our DNA, but it doesn't turn on the lights. It actually turns on the genes that will give instructions to that cell to make enzymes that act as protectors, that act as anti-inflammatory products, and that detox. Super, super important. I think this is key for our dogs. So this NRF2 switch, think of it as a switch, it's going to be turned on, and it protects the cell against the oxidative stress damage that now we know how bad that is. And it sends signals and sends instructions to the DNA to make more antioxidant enzymes, to make more anti-inflammatory enzymes, detoxifying enzymes, repair the DNA. And this is something, it's a fancy name, apoptosis. And the reason I bring it up is because I feel it's very important for what we discussed about cancer in dogs. Apoptosis is proper cell death. And it sounds like something bad, but it's actually something good, because the cells are supposed to reproduce, and then they have a certain lifespan, and then they're supposed to die. When they don't die according to the program, they keep on reproducing. And that's one of the theories of tumors, of how tumors are formed. So super important. This is another protein. So think of it as another instruction, another switch. It's called NRF1. And what this switch does is it tells the cell to make more mitochondria. Some of you may remember 6th grade biology. If you don't, that's okay. Mitochondria is where the energy in the cell is made. So it's the energy currency. So like we go to the supermarket and we have to pay in dollars. Well, your cell needs to pay with energy produced in the mitochondria called ATP to make all the things that the cell needs to stay healthy. So to make hormones, to make proteins, to make tissue, to make for cell communication, everything is run by ATP. So think of it as cellular energy. Okay. When your mitochondria, there is a mitochondrial disease that it's a genetic mutation, and people don't live very long because without this energy, your body just can't function. So this is going to increase the function of the mitochondria. Mitochondria make little networks. And just to give you an idea, your heart, your muscles, and your brain have the most amount of mitochondria per cell, to the tune of like 3,000 per cell. Can you imagine 3,000 of these little things in just one cell? That's how much energy your heart, your muscles, and your brain require to be able to function properly. So it's going to increase the cellular energy, and it's going to improve physical performance. So for those of you that have performance horses or performance dogs, or if you are a weekend warrior, that is very, very important. So what this, in that interview that I mentioned before, what Dr. McCord found was a formula that it was so effective, he was able to patent it. And it's made with 5 ingredients, natural ingredients: turmeric root, green tea, bacopa, milk thistle, and ashwagandha. And the way he combined them has the ability to reduce oxidative stress by 40% in 30 days. 40% in 30 days. So this is critical. These were some human clinical studies. So what you see is as we age, that oxidative stress is cumulative. So it keeps growing, growing, growing. So that's the light blue bar. So this is the age, 20, 40, 60. So by the time we get to 80, we have a very, very high level of oxidative stress. And what the trials that they did is that people that would take this formula, they, at the end of 120 days, they could not tell the difference between the blood of a 20-year-old person and the blood of an 80-year-old person. And this was so significant that he was granted a patent for this NRF2 activation product. Okay. And just so you know, you're probably used to patents like in gadgets and things like that. And when someone makes a gadget, someone can make it a little bit better and they can also patent it. But for a nutritional formula to be patented, it has to function. They have to demonstrate it works in 99% of the cases. If not, so it's very, very hard. So this is remarkable. This is like just unbelievable. It sounds simple, but it's really a huge accomplishment. And then the company started working on how to activate this NRF1 pathway that we talked for the mitochondria. So again, 5 ingredients. Some of you might have heard, oh, I have, this is actually it's grape extract, not coin. I have this twice, sorry. So if you have heard of resveratrol, some of you might have heard that, or have you heard like, oh, you know, drinking red wine is good for you. So that's that ingredient in the grapes that is good. So they combine this and they can actually prove that it activates this NRF1 gene by 65% and this other gene by 71%. So these are all scientific studies. They're available for those of you that love science. We can get you those. So remember, this formula was patented because it has a synergistic effect. What does that mean? Is that when he combined all those 5 herbs, the activation was 18 times more effective than if you took the ingredients by themselves. Because some people say like, well, I take green tea, or I take turmeric, or I take green milk thistle. But as you can see, this is one of the enzymes. This is so important, glutathione. If you want to write this down and research glutathione, it's fascinating. This is an enzyme that detoxes the cells. And actually, glutathione is the only enzyme that can help the body get rid of that glyphosate. So this is huge, huge for our dogs. Like I use the NRF2 like just for this reason, just to be able to detox them from all the stuff that they're exposed to. So as you can see, when they tested the individual ingredients, how there's even negative activation, right? But when they combine them in this NRF2 formula that he called Protandim, it's 18 times more effective. And why is that so significant? Because what this is activating, this NRF2 is activating antioxidant enzymes. And one enzyme, so this is I think this is glutathione. This is what it looks like, the molecular, like for those of you that I like science. So, so one of these molecules, just one, remember with the direct antioxidant is 1 to 1. Well, now we're 1 to 1 million. So one antioxidant enzyme, one detoxifying enzyme can neutralize 1 million free radicals per second. So do you remember that 300 followed by 24 or 26 zeros? Can you see how now we can actually start to make a dent in that? Because just one antioxidant enzyme that is activated by taking this formula can neutralize 1 million free radicals per second. So this is glutathione, my favorite. I could talk glutathione forever. But among the things, I think for our dogs, for our animals, this detoxifying the liver and the cells is so important. But if you're already thinking like, oh, maybe I should take this as well. So if you want better sleep, if you are stressed, if you want, improving skin is also huge for the animals. Athletic performance, if you are an athlete, if you want more energy, slowing down aging, like, hello, like sign me up, right? So this is how this works. As we age, this is how our oxidative stress levels start going up. And this is how our glutathione levels start coming down. So you see, it's kind of like a double whammy effect, like we have more oxidative stress and less enzymes to fight them. And that leads to inflammation, and that leads to disease. So there's another theory of aging, and it's the mitochondrial theory of aging. So again, this is when there's mitochondrial disease. These are all the things that can happen. Here we go with the liver again, unexplained liver failure. And I think with dogs, a lot of times, like the first thing that when you take your dog to the vet, oh, we don't know what's going on, he's acting funny, he's skipping meal, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you know down deep in your heart something's going on. Usually they start testing their liver and their kidney values, and they're high. So here's the mitochondria again. Unexplained kidney disease, unexplained liver failure. And I don't know how unexplained it is. I can explain it, but most people don't believe it's all the toxins. So this is so interesting. This is from a book. I think it's coming on the next slide. So it says the condition of the mitochondria dictate the capacity of the cell to function over time. As they decline, cellular operations decline with them. So it's every single cell in your body. This is a quote from this book. This is a fascinating book. It's a little dense. So this is just for people that really like science. It's called Tripping Over the Truth, and it's the metabolic theory of cancer. So these are studies that actually are like 50 years old, but they're uncovering them again, because what they have found is with all the chemos and the radiation and surgeries and all that, still people are dying of cancer. There's a very high rate. And again, talking about the dogs. So there's a look at this. This is super interesting. Recent cancer research demonstrate that if a cancerous cell nucleus is transplanted into a normal cell, the cell remains normal. However, if you transplant the mitochondria from a cancerous cell into a normal cell, the cell becomes cancerous. Cancer cells have damaged mitochondria. Damaged mitochondria send emergency signals, and the DNA responds, and the cell begins to exhibit the hallmark features of cancer: uncontrolled proliferation, DNA mutations, and evasion of cell death. That's that apoptosis that I was telling you about. So with the NRF2 regulating this, right? So I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that this cures cancer or mitigates it or anything. I just want you to connect the dots. All cancers are the same. And this is one thing that people have a great deal of difficulty realizing. They think breast cancer is different from brain cancer, from colon, bladder, and maybe different in dogs than humans, mice. but you know they are all the same. Cancer starts from damage to the respiration, regardless of the tissue. The mitochondria become damaged. Once the mitochondria become damaged and they throw out reactive oxygen species, those are the free radicals, they are mutagenic and carcinogenic. Okay, so these are all quotes from these books. So let's review a little bit what we have here with NRF2 activation, and think in the prevention camp. Okay, so maybe, hopefully, nobody has any issue or no dogs have any issue. So if you can activate your dog's NRF2 pathway, you are protecting them by reducing the free radical damage by 40% in 30 days, and then it keeps on going lower if you keep on taking it. It's going to turn on survival genes and reduce inflammation, and it's going to detox the body, the cells, because it activates glutathione by 300%. This is super significant because you cannot eat glutathione. You might go in and do your research and there's glutathione precursors and blah, 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 and infusions and this and that, but they're not really very effective because they have to, those precursors have to go through your stomach and the stomach acids and blah, blah, blah. So you get nothing. This is acting at the cellular level. It's going to increase the glutathione by 300%. We have a study that proves that this product does that. And again, if you're interested, ask the person who invited you, we'll provide you with that study. And then NRF1 will increase cellular energy. So that's that ATP production. That's that energy currency that the cell needs to make everything. It promotes the formation of healthy mitochondria, and it will maintain peak cellular function. For those of you that like science or like to research, PubMed.gov. So don't go to the Google University where anybody can post anything. Go to PubMed.gov. This is the National Institute of Health online library. It's owned by the government, not by any company in particular. And if you type, it has a search bar, and you type NRF2, you'll see there are over 20,000 studies. And for NRF1, over 1,500. This is a much more recent field. So here is some, like, you're probably saying, okay, now how does this work? So again, not meant to treat, cure, mitigate anything. We start activating the dogs. This is a kitty. This kitty is a rescue. When she was found, her leg was broken and it had healed in a funky way. So you see her little pad is here, and she was using this part of the foot. So the vet had recommended amputation. We started activating her NRF2. Boom, a couple of months. This became this. This is one of my favorite cases. Eli belongs to one of my students, and this is what Eli's knee looked like. This is what a knee should look like. So this was so horrendous, they thought he had bone cancer. He did not have bone cancer, but they thought he had bone cancer because this looks awful. We started activating Eli. This is from last winter. Eli, they wanted to amputate his leg because they thought there was nothing they could do about it. And poor Eli had gained like 8 pounds and he didn't want to move because it hurt. Well, this is Eli playing with one of my students, Michelle's grandkids, in the snow. Remember, we discussed skin issues. Here we go. This is a dog. They had thrown everything but the kitchen sink at him. Nothing worked. And this is what I was talking about with the prevention, right? So this is the study that I was talking to you about. So what they did is, because they've mapped the human genome and they've also mapped the dog genome, they have some markers for aging. And this has thrown away that theory of the 1 year is the equivalent of 7 years. Look what happens. Dogs age exponentially the first years of their life, and then the curve slows down. So if you have a 1-year-old dog, he's the equivalent of a 30-year-old person. If you have a 4-year-old dog, he's the equivalent of 50-some-year-old person. And then by the age 9, it starts. So a 10-year-old dog is like 70. Okay. So when I first saw this, I wanted to cry. But it made me realize that we really need to start with these interventions as early as possible, because if we can curb that oxidative stress and maintain that inflammation at the lower level and help them detox from all the junk that they're exposed to every day, we are putting ourselves in a winning place, right? So it just makes, for me, it makes a lot of sense to start biohacking as early as possible. So in closing, what I really want you to take home is this oxidative stress that we can't escape, right? Because we get it by breathing, by eating, by stepping in the sunlight. And then our dogs have that humongous oxidative stress load with all the toxins that we discussed in those first slides. That's going to lead to inflammation. So anything that earns an itis, if you go to the vet or if you go to the doctor and the doctor says you have fill in the blank itis, that means inflammation. And that inflammation, if left unchecked, is going to lead to disease. In fact, they have a new term now, they call it inflammaging, which is inflammation will lead to premature aging, okay? So the patented NRF2 activation product that we have is proven to reduce oxidative stress by 40% in 30 days and even lower levels with continued use. So that's for the science part. Like, how do we get this? So you have probably been invited to this presentation by someone who's a distributor with this company, LifeVantage, that has those activators. And I call it the elephant in the room. Yes, it's an MLM, and who cares? Walmart distributes products in their stores. Amazon distributes products online. LifeVantage distributes their products through distributors. It's just a distribution model. I do want to point out, because I know MLM has a lot of bad reputation, but what I have discovered is that it has offered me flexibility to work. There was a recent study or an article in Forbes magazine, and they say that especially women are more interested in flexibility, so they can, because women are caregivers, so they're taking care of their kids, they're taking care of their parents. So being able to work flexible hours was even more important than how much they were paid. But in that paid department, when a lot of times women are overlooked, you're paid your worth. You have control because you're not going to lay off yourself, right? Hopefully. You can advance quicker or as quickly as you want. And for me, this is what I'm doing. I'm following my passion, which is helping dogs. And in helping dogs, I'm also helping people, because guess what? There's a person at the other end of the leash, right? So another advantage is that this has is it has a very low entry point. It's online. So some of you I know are in your pajamas and we're still working. It's patented technology, which is huge. And we have over 28, the NRF2 product has 28 peer-reviewed studies. Peer-reviewed means that it had to go to 5 other scientists in the same field and be approved for publication in that PubMed, okay? So we are recruiting voices. We need more people to come and help you. You can become a distributor for as little as $50, but there's also some packs that have a lot of products at a discount. So if it's in your heart, you know, who do you know that, if it's not you, that needs to know about this, or that, you know, wants to follow this passion about helping dogs and helping people. So we're building teams. This company is in all these countries. So if you know anybody, I know someone in England, I know someone in Spain that would probably love this. So this is what we're after. You know, it's less of this and more of this. And I want to end with this. And I'm going to wait a little bit because I know this takes time to load. But how many more? So Eli, is that dog with that knee that I showed you, that the vet said he had to amputate the legs. So how many more Elis are out there waiting for someone like us to show them there's a better way? And I'm on a mission to change 100,000 dogs' lives, because we need to get that information out there, because the suffering that these animals are being exposed to with those harsh treatments, and the expense and the heartache for the owners that are trying to do everything to save them. So I hope this plays, because this makes my day. When Michelle told me about it, so I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, you need to send me a picture.